Well, first of all, yes, the economy is a very important issue. We're growing at about 50% of the 70-year average. So our average growth rate post-World War II is about 3.5% GDP growth. We've been growing at about 50% of that rate the last 8 years, and that's not good enough. It's not good enough to raise people's wages, good enough to raise our prosperity, good enough to fund our defense. It's not good enough to properly fund Social Security and Medicare. So we need to raise that growth rate at least to the average, if not beyond it. 4% growth rate would be great. And if we could do a 4% growth rate versus the percent and 1.6% we've been doing, we'll have millions more Americans working, and the average family of four will have hundreds of dollars extra in their pocket every month because their wages will go up because there'll be demand for their labor. And that's one of the reasons I ran. The working class, the middle class, working families haven't had a pay raise in 20 years when you take out the effects of inflation.
Well, yeah, but I mean, kind of like the event today said, the taxes, the regulations is more, I would say, than the taxes. But yeah, the taxes is big too. I mean, and Rod, a good point about we need some welfare reform. I mean, we would love to improve on the workforce, but it's tough to find willing, able, and good guys that want to work. It's not easy anymore, and I don't know if there's a magic solution to that. But I don't know if it's become almost too attractive not to work. But I mean, we always want to better ourselves.
Very hard in the district. I'm back here almost every weekend, and we travel a lot. We put a lot of windshield miles on, and we work really hard in the district. People recognize that. We've held lots of veterans care fairs, seniors wellness fairs, job fairs. Been very active out and about in the district, so Iowans tend to reward that type of hard work. Secondly, I did what I said I was going to do. I told people 2 years ago, if you want a yes person to go to Washington, D.C., that's just going to cave in no matter what the issue and vote with their party, you should probably send my opponent. Or if you want change, if you want somebody that will stand up to even their own party sometimes, send me. And they sent me, and I'm honored and humbled to serve the people of this district in Washington. But the very first vote, for example, I stood up to my own party. I voted against our existing Speaker of the House, John Boehner. So I have stood up to my own party sometimes. Other times, I've worked well with them, and we helped pass, I worked with them to help pass the education bill, helped pass the transportation bill, helped pass the 21st Century Cures Act. That adds $9 billion to research diseases like Alzheimer's and cancers. So when it makes sense, I work within our party, and sometimes they need to be stood up to. For example, when they break the spending caps, then I stand up to my own party. So we need to get our budget balanced.
I know OSHA that we spend a lot of money on safety, and obviously you want everybody safe. But sometimes they almost are looking for almost a way to gain some revenue for the government rather than keeping the employees safe. I mean, they are, but is it truly all about it? I don't know. I mean, some of that's, each plan has their own rules too, but it's definitely a lot of money goes into that. Just off the top of my head, that's one instance.
Okay. There was a lot of talk today about proposed federal rules regarding overtime pay, workers that would be entitled to overtime pay, and the cost on business from the Affordable Care Act. Can you talk about the impacts to your business from those?
Yeah, I'm not so sure on the Affordable Care Act as much, but the overtime, yeah, I mean that definitely would affect us all, and I would need to read a little more on it, but it's just, I don't know if it's the right way to mandate it on us. I mean, I think we treat all of our employees pretty well, and we want to treat them well, and we want to have a good business for them to come and work. But sometimes, like Ben Graham mentioned, it kind of wears you out almost complying with everything.
That one of the things that's standing in the way of job growth and creation and expansion of small businesses has to do with balancing the budget, and your opponent has kind of criticized you for saying that you're not afraid to shut down the government. I guess, where do we stand right now when Congress reconvenes, when it gets back in session after the election? How do things look, and would you be willing to shut down the government?
We passed a short-term continuing resolution, short-term CR, which takes us through mid-December. It's December 8th or 9th, I believe. And so the government funding will expire on that day. And then, we need to We need to pass probably an omnibus bill at that point in time that will fund us for the rest of fiscal year 2017. I'm a person that believes we should go back to regular order, and we shouldn't even be talking about government shutdowns. We shouldn't be talking about continuing resolutions. We shouldn't be talking about omnibuses. What we should go back to doing is debating and passing the 12 normal appropriations bills. We authorize the spending and then we appropriate the spending, and there's 12 major spending areas. We need to go back to doing it the old-fashioned way, the way it's worked for 240 years. For some reason, and it's at the leadership level of both parties, that's broken down, and we need to get back to that. Then we wouldn't even be having this discussion. So I'm all for the normal, it's called regular order, going back to the way we always did this, and throughout the year, taking up every one of the appropriations bills, debating it in an open and transparent way, allowing amendments, having up or down votes. That's the old-fashioned way. We need to get back to that.